Imagine yourself in a room. And imagine on the other side of the room, someone is spraying an air freshener. After a while, you can smell the scent of the air freshener to your side of the room. And then imagine someone bringing a durian to the room on the other side. And after a while, you can smell the durian. Now imagine your friend coming into the room and then farting. Your friend is farting on the other side of the room, but after a while, you can smell the fart on your side of the room. Have you noticed that a scent quickly spreads across the room? The scent from the air freshener started on the left side of the room, and then after a few minutes, will reach to the right side of the room. The same thing goes for the scent from the durian and also the smell from the fart. The scent travels from the left side of the room to the rest of the room. How does this happen? The scent coming from these things are caused by particles. The scent coming from the air freshener is because of the gas particles inside the air freshener. The scent coming from the durian is because of the durian particles that comes off from the durian. And then the smell from the fart is from the fart particles that is inside the fart. And these particles can travel from one place to another. And the movement of these particles is called diffusion. And diffusion is the topic for today's video lesson. So in today's video lesson, we'll be looking at the meaning of diffusion, and also we'll be looking at diffusion in solids, liquids, and also gases. So like I mentioned before, diffusion is the movement of particles. So how do these particles move? Let's take the durian for an example, and we see how the scent particles from the durian move from one place to another. So this is how it looks like. So you may notice the particles now move around and move in random directions from the durian to your nose. Let's look at that again. And that is how smell or the scent from the durian travels from the durian to your nose. And this is what we mean by diffusion. It is the movement of particles. The movement of particles from one region to another is called diffusion. So this is the definition of diffusion. The spaces between particles allow them to move about. Diffusion can happen in solids, liquids, and also gases. After this, we'll be looking at 3 experiments that show you how diffusion happens in solids, how diffusion happens in liquids, and how diffusion happens in gases. So in other words, we'll be looking at experiments that show how particles move in solids, how particles move in liquids, and how particles move in gases. This first experiment will show you how particles diffuse in gases. So let's have a look. So you have a gas, something that's called a gas jar, and inside the gas jar is bromine gas. So a gas that's called bromine. You put another gas jar on top of the bromine gas jar, and you open the lid of the bottom gas jar, and you see what happens. You can see slowly the gases from the bromine gas jar move upwards to the top gas jar. And this shows you how particles diffuse in gases. So basically what's happening is the bromine particles move upwards, just like what is shown here in this video. Now let's look at the second experiment. In this second experiment, it will show you how particles diffuse in liquid. So here you have a dish of water, which is a type of liquid, And then in the middle, you put something that's called potassium permanganate, which is a purple colored substance. And you can see slowly the particles for the potassium permanganate move from the center and then move outwards throughout the liquid. You can see the particles traveling, and this is what we call diffusion in liquids. In this video, you will also see the same type of experiment, but this time the potassium permanganate will be placed at the bottom of the water, and let's see what happens. You will see slowly that the potassium permanganate will travel upwards and also throughout the water until it has traveled to all the parts of the water. So for the third experiment, this experiment will show you how particles diffuse in solids. So we don't have a real life video for this one, so we will just use an animation to show you how this experiment is done. On the left side, you have a test tube that is filled with a type of gel that is clear in color. It doesn't have any color, it's colorless. And on the right side, you have a few crystals called copper 2 sulfate crystals, and they are blue in color. Insert a piece of copper to the test tube with the gel, and then close it with a rubber band, and then flip it upside down. And then after a few days, you will see slowly the copper 2 sulfate disappears, and then you are left with a gel that is blue in color. So this means that the particles from the blue copper 2 sulfate crystal move from the bottom of the test tube to the rest of the test tube. And this is another example of diffusion in solids. So what have you learned about diffusion? Diffusion is the random movement of particles, and diffusion can happen in solids, it can happen in liquids, and also it can happen in gases. And that is the end of the video lesson. Thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.